As we continue to cope with this year's pandemic, it's tempting to dream about the first things we'll do once the world becomes noticeably safer. While this may well be far off, sometimes it's healthy to dream of this nonetheless. If this is a way to cope with our current circumstances, it would be instructive to consider this week's Torah portion, Noach, specifically Noah's actions once he steps foot onto dry land after the flood. The logic in Noah's actions lies in the details, in that he builds an altar and then makes an offering to God, but sacrifices only the clean animals, those whose level of purity make them acceptable for this ritual. Now, it might seem counterintuitive that Noah would slaughter some animals he had just saved during the flood, but we need to remind ourselves that animal sacrifice was a biblical expression of emotion and thanksgiving. Besides, the commentator Abraham ibn Ezra claims that the animals Noah sacrifices all appear later in the Torah, meaning that Noah did not actually destroy any species. So, with that established, we see in Noah a desire to begin again, to initiate a new era in human history, and he does so in two ways. He builds by constructing an altar, and he utilizes the very best of creation prior to the flood by sacrificing the cleanest of animals. He starts from scratch on one hand, and on the other hand, he borrows from before. We learn, therefore, that every time we start anew, whether personally, as a family, or as a larger group, our focus should always incorporate elements of the past. We look forward to the day when we can put COVID-19 behind us, but whenever that day arrives, we must be sure to acknowledge the suffering it's caused, as well as recognizing the unlikely ways we've worked together to bring ourselves closer in spite of so many obstacles. Amen.